Welcome, everybody. We are going to get started. This is the Fair Districts September Huddle. And my name's Mia Lewis. I'm with Fair Districts and Common Cause Ohio. And we are going to speed through so many things tonight. We have a lot of things to cover. We have a lot of people here who are going to be joining us to tell you about what's happening with redistricting Ohio right now and in the future. And it's pretty exciting. This is our agenda for this evening. We're going to give you a real quick update about the current redistricting situation. We're going to tell you about what's coming next, citizens, not politicians. And oh boy, did today emphasize how important that is. We're going to give you a quick walk through the policy that's being proposed for an independent citizens commission, talk about the timeline, talk about how you'll be involved, talk about upcoming trainings, and then give you some links to news stories, etc. You will get a follow-up tomorrow with links to slides and a recording, so don't worry about that. Please put your questions in the Q&A if you have questions, and we will be happy to answer as many of them as we can as we go along and towards the end. So without further ado, I'm going to turn over to Jen Miller from League of Women Voters, who's going to update us about what is going on.
Oh my goodness, everyone. So you know that the Ohio congressional map, we had a lawsuit before the Supreme Court. That lawsuit was dismissed. The petitioners petitioned that it be dismissed. What we aren't really saying out loud is that we're worried that the map would get worse. And so we are going to use the same congressional map. Now, the Ohio State House maps, they are supposed to start making new maps. We thought that maybe there would be some activity today, and boy, there was. It just was, as someone said, oy vey. We did a solidarity march. Equal districts and fair districts started at Trinity Church and marched to the Rhodes Tower where the hearing was. We had about 75 people, which I think is great, make it in. So thank you all for that. We had a nice little gathering outside Rhodes, and then we all went in and filled all those seats. Our asks are transparency and public participation, and start with some of the maps that we know are fair, that we know keep communities together. They could be those from the Fair Districts mapping competition, the Citizens Redistricting Commission map, the Unity map, the independent mappers. We expect more of the same, unfortunately, but we're going to keep showing up. Next slide, please. And now we're going to talk about why we need to have mapping be done by citizens and not politicians. And that is the new campaign, Citizens, Not Politicians. So we're going to introduce that. Next slide. And so the guiding principles started with this exploration. We wanted to understand if and how we could run a winnable, workable, enforceable ballot measure in 2024. The policy drafting goal was a citizen-initiated constitutional amendment to create an independent citizens redistricting commission for both state and congressional districts, and that the policy should leverage the best of all thinking. And part of that North Star is that neither party can put their thumb on the scale. Lots of folks were involved. Next slide. Part of this, and Greg Moore was part of this. I'm seeing a lot of people that have had moments of being able to give input. What I'm going to tell you about this policy is you're going to hear a lot more about it, but the bottom line is that it involved all of the experts that we have all leaned on for years now to understand best practices in redistricting, to measure maps for fairness. And it's full of all these incredible, diverse advocates and friends that we all have. And so this is just a snapshot, although there were other policy stakeholders who were involved too. Where we are right now is we are collecting petitions. So we have submitted for the second time around our first 1,000 to the AG. We expect, unfortunately, that the AG will deny those tomorrow. It's very possible that we can move forward and start collecting in earnest, but unfortunately, we know how these things go. And so it is very possible that we will be back in the field collecting another 1,000 or so this weekend or early next week. Keep in mind that we're going to need all of you soon. But right now we're just relying on a handful of volunteers, mostly in Northeast Ohio and the Columbus area, because 1,000 is pretty easy to get. But I want to thank everyone who has helped us get this far. And we're going to talk about that, and thank all of you who are going to help us continue to work on citizens, not politicians, and see it all the way through a win in 2024. And I think I'm done.
Yep. Thank you so much, Jen. I'm going to now highlight Catherine.
Well, and we're going to do a little bit of a poll, but before we did, I think, it's important to realize that the folks that were part of kind of policy development and were thinking about policy development, that not all of them have gone through the process where they've gotten their boards to sign on to, hey, this specific issue. So just wanted to highlight that, for many of us, it ends up being this kind of long process. So I am kind of excited to think back on where we've been. And so this is from one of our rallies where we were calling as equal districts and fair districts, for fair congressional maps. This is one that where, you can tell it was a little bit colder than it is today. So Mia, if you will pull up poll number 2 for us.
Catherine, I have an issue with my polls that I can't actually do it unless I stop screen sharing for a second. So we can.
Okay. If you're willing to stop screen sharing and pull up a poll. So the poll this is kind of interesting with the poll. I was kind of wondering, what kind of our history is overall. We are at 286 folks right now on this webinar. And so, for me, I've been working on redistricting reform since the late 90s. And I know that we have folks who have been at this for a very long time. So, the question is, have you worked on previous redistricting reform efforts? So, the first one that we had in Ohio was in 1981. I wasn't engaged with that one, but I was in 2005. So if you can identify the first one, you can do all of them. So I could do 2005, 2012, 2015, etc. The other thing is, work on citizen initiatives is really transferable. So it's important, if you haven't worked on redistricting reform efforts, I have worked on other ballot measures. And we are almost at 300 folks on this webinar. So, Mia, are you ready to close it up? Or
Yes,
do you need
I am. I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share the results. And then I'm going to go on to go back to slides. And
it's kind of amazing though, Mia, like 3% worked on in 1981. That is amazing. And so one of the things that's cool here is you can slowly see, more and more folks getting engaged, and that we have a long history of folks that have worked really hard on redistricting reform in Ohio. So I am very impressed. I'm also glad there's so many folks that haven't worked on redistricting and that have been parts of other ballot measures. And so on to the next slide. For that, I just wanted to highlight, it is actually hard to come up with the best policy, meaning the best amendment. It is very clear that leaving the map making in the hands of elected officials just simply does not work. That it is genuinely problematic. We need to take it away from them. Many of you have heard me say, these folks are drunk on power. They're drunk on power. What do you do with drunks? You take away their keys. So we need to take away the map making from elected officials and give it to citizens. And through the Fair Districts Huddle, we did a bunch of research, and Many of you may have been on these. So there's we had this wonderful conversation with Anthony Eade. He is an independent from Michigan, who was on the Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. He gave us a lot of really good information about like what was in the amendment, but also how it worked in practice. I wanted to do a thank you to Professor Niven, who joined us a couple different times talking about his research so that we could better understand the impact of our current system and how other commissions have operated. I really enjoyed like Patricia Sine as well from California. And then we had folks from Colorado who joined us, and then folks from the Campaign Legal Center. So yes, there were a number of folks that helped inform what is in the amendment. And with that, I am going to hand it off.
Very good. Thank you, Catherine. So we are lucky in Ohio, as Catherine has just gone through all those different people that we talked to. We're lucky because we are not going to be the first people to do an independent citizens commission, redistricting commission. We have the benefit of the knowledge of what happened in California, what happened in Colorado, what happened in Arizona, what happened in Michigan, and we can take the best parts of all that policy. We also have the benefit of the horror of the last couple of years. So, none of us are going to be Pollyannas, and none of us are going to trust anybody. The policy has been written to try to make sure that there's no chinks in the armor, that everything is covered. And that's partly why we're just giving you an overview today, because the policy itself is extremely detailed and thorough. And we are doing a policy deep dive on September 28th at noon, and we will share the registration for that a little bit later. But just know that what we're explaining today is really just the top lines of the policy, and you will have an opportunity. First of all, you can read the whole thing. I know we've shared a link to the actual language of the policy, but we're going to go into it in further detail. So I know you want to know, how is the commission selected? And it's a little bit of a complicated process, but I personally think it's a brilliant process. So who picks the commissioners? Well, it begins with a bipartisan applicant review panel, and that panel is made up of 4 retired judges, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And you may ask, well, how are they chosen? Well, they're actually chosen themselves by a bipartisan panel made up from the members of the ballot, 2 Democrats and 2 Republican members of the ballot board, who are the people who were nominated by the legislature. So you have a group of people from the ballot board, bipartisan, and they put together lists of retired judges who have applied to be on the position, and then they cross-select. So the Republicans select 2 Democrats, and the Democrats select 2 Republicans. And so then you have this panel of 4 judges, retired judges, and their job is to basically open up the process, ask for applications. They work with a professional search company to spread the applications around, to encourage people to apply. And then there's lots of people. We hope many people apply. Maybe you will apply. Think about applying to be on the commission. And so out of all of those applications, the first thing they need to do is screen out all the people who are ineligible. And you can see that it says current or former politicians, party officials, major political donors, etc., lobbyists. And Catherine's going to talk a little bit more about that later. But so you have all of these applicants, and their job is the review panel. First, they select 90 applicants who they think are good, and that's 30 Democrats, 30 Republicans, 30 independents, and that's always going to be the same number from each of those 3 pools. And then they whittle that down to 45, so 15, 15, 15. And it's not just, oh, we think these people are good. They have to seem as if they could be impartial. They have to have a knowledge of communities. They have to have relevant skills, and they must, as a whole, make up a group of people who are demographically and geographically representative of Ohio. So we're not going to have, all Irish Americans from Cincinnati. No, we're going to have a group of people that represents diversity of Ohio, and has skills, etc. So you've got 15 finalists who have been selected by the bipartisan applicant review panel of retired judges. And this, by the way, is public. Their names are public, and the public can weigh in. They can look at the applications. They can watch some of the, interviews and things as they happen. So it's a public process. Now what happens? This is the cool part. Of those 15 commissioners who've been chosen, of the 45 commissioners, 2 from each of the 15, 2 out of each pool of 15 are selected randomly, literally randomly, using something like what they do at the lottery. So 2 Democrats will be chosen out of 15 randomly, 2 Republicans will be chosen, and 2 independents. So you have 6 members who, they don't owe their allegiance to anybody. They've filled out the application. They've been checked over to make sure that they are who they say they are, that their affiliation is what it should be, that they are not ineligible in any way. And those 6 people, they choose the remaining members of the commission. And so they choose the final 9 members. So you end up with 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, 5 independents. And those selections, the 6 who are making those final choices, they can't, it can't be just one party or even just 2 parties that agree to those people. Those members of the commission have to be voted on. At least one person from each pool has to vote in favor of the additional people who are being added to the commission. So you end up with a 15-person commission, 5, 5, 5. And again, it's designed to represent geographically, demographically, the diversity of Ohio. And that is your 15-member commission. And just to, like I said, this policy has been designed with a lot of firewalls. So they're not just going to be like, oh, someone says they're a Democrat, great. Or someone says they're a Republican, great. These things will be verified based on the person's primary voting history, their political contributions, their campaign contributions, and many other factors. And again, this will be a public process. So if somebody says, oh, well, I'm a Democrat, I want to be on the commission, and then a member of the public can say, well, I'm not so sure about that. Did you know that they were a party official or something like that? So this is how it works. And I am going to turn it back over to Catherine. Let me spotlight you here.
Well, one of the things that I think is super clear is that this is a little bit complicated. And you might say to yourself, oh my gosh, why is this so complicated? And, there's a really easy answer for this. It becomes complicated because we're thinking about all of the different ways that elected officials play games. We've also, when I was talking about kind of getting to know folks who have seen independent citizens commissions actually being implemented, we really were thinking about, well, what are the ways that they didn't quite work in other states? And so, Arizona is a good example of not having enough people on their commission and how that was impacted. And so we will be having other kind of conversations and deeper dives into this because I know it's going fairly quickly. So I have to tell you, I'm very distressed by this. I am not eligible to serve on the Ohio Citizens Redistricting Commission that we're in the process of creating. And that is because I am a registered lobbyist. And as you know, I lobby for Common Cause Ohio and certainly lobby for fair maps, but I'm a registered lobbyist. And so I could not be on the commission. It's something that I would really love to be able to do. The other thing that I think is important is you know, no elected officials, no appointed officials, no folks that were candidates for the past 6 years, no folks that work for the political party or are contractors for the political party or for political action committees or for campaign committees. Prohibitions also include for those who served as staff members. So if you think about the staff of the state house, or they were paid consultants, or they were contractors for any elected officials. So that's federal, state, and local office. It also includes immediate family members. So generally we're talking about people's spouses. This is important to think about, you know, how this all could play out and how we really do need to be independent. And by that, and I'm not talking political party independence, I'm talking about making sure that there is a buffer and that the folks that are selected for this commission are truly as buffered from partisan interests as possible.
Very good. And now I'm going to turn it over to Trevor, who's going to talk about how the maps are actually, what the rules are for drawing the maps.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Other than, kicking politicians completely off of this commission, this is where I am super excited about this new mapping criteria. There are some overarching things. First of all, we must abide by the U.S. Constitution and federal laws, including the Voting Rights Act. And then the statewide proportion of districts shall correspond closely to statewide partisan preference of Ohio voters. Now, that was kind of open-ended in the Constitution, but we have, put some parameters on there. So when we're talking about closely correspond to statewide partisan preferences, then we, how the statewide proportion of districts that favors a political party shall be determined. They will be shall not deviate by more than 3 percentage points in either direction from the statewide partisan preference. So it actually gives a parameter there that they cannot stray from. So it keeps them locked in into that 3 percentage points on each side. Also, another thing, a big sticking point with the commission was incumbency and where incumbents were seated and putting incumbents together in the same race. Well, no consideration of incumbent candidates whatsoever. No addresses allowed. We aren't drawing maps for incumbents. We're drawing maps for citizens. So get rid of that completely. Fantastic. Equal population and contiguity. Contiguity is kind of self-explaining. They have to all of the districts have to be connected together. You can't have portions here and portions there. But the equal population point is we have a provision in there now that will actually prevent prison gerrymandering, which I'm super excited about. This provision will provide that that persons in the custody of the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections or any successor agency shall be counted in their last known address pre-incarceration for purposes of equalizing population. When concerning the place of residence, it's fantastic because a lot of these prisons are located in rural areas and artificially bump up the population counts in those districts. So this is fantastic. I'm super excited to see this in there. Ensure racial, ethnic, and language minorities have equal opportunity to elect candidates. Again, that's with the Federal Voting Rights Act, as well as some Ohio provisions to make sure that ethnic and racial minorities do have a chance to be represented. And then finally, and folks who know me with doing the community maps, we are eliminating the political subdivisions pretty much. We're putting communities of interest first. We could go ahead to the next slide. We'll talk about communities of interest. Um, you know, we have a provision to define communities of interest as an area where, or as a area where the record um, of the commission will focus specifically on. Oh, excuse me, here I lost. All right, community of interest as an area where the commission can demonstrate the existence of communities of people with broadly shared interests and representational needs, including those that arise from common ethnic, racial, social, cultural, geographic, environmental, socioeconomic, or historic identities or concerns. Now, this doesn't, put the political subdivisions in a dustbin. However, it does put communities first, communities of interest first, and then provides that counties and municipal corporations, townships, school districts, and the like may constitute a community of interest, provided that the record before the commission clearly and convincingly demonstrates that such subdivisions are a community of people who have broadly shared interests and representational needs greater than those of overlapping communities of interest. And then finally, under no circumstance will a community of interest be defined as a shared political identity or a common relationship with a political party or a political candidate. And also, when considering these overlapping communities of interest to preserve which ones to preserve, the commission shall have greater consideration to those communities whose representational needs would be most benefited from the community's inclusion in a single district. So I'm just, super excited to finally put Ohioans first before political parties or political candidates, or just it's great to see communities coming first and get the subdivisions that were they interfered with placing like say Warren and Youngstown together because of splitting requirements, or there's areas outside of Dayton, Montgomery and Greene. There's a lot of shared communities that cross that county line that were unable to be paired together. Well, these political subdivisions are sidelined now. Communities of interest come first. So I'm very excited to hear about that. And I'm very excited to end prison gerrymandering. Fantastic news.
Yep. Thank you so much, Trevor. I'm now going to spotlight Colin, who is going to, there we go. Talk to us about the next stage in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I begin real quick, I do want to just say thank you to everybody here. And I want to acknowledge all of the hard work, the hard lessons learned of everybody here. We've been at this now for close to 3 years. So I am very excited with this proposal. I think it's, moves Ohio in the right direction and will deliver the maps and the districts that Ohioans deserve. So I couldn't be more proud to be here talking to everybody today, and especially proud about the transparency and public hearing provisions that that are included in this proposal. First and foremost, we needed to make sure that the Citizens Commission adheres to Ohio's open meeting laws, our sunshine laws. Very basic stuff, but critically important. It goes without saying that the decisions that are made, the discussions that are made, need to be in broad daylight for the public to see. But during the last 2 years, we have seen, that these public meeting requirements get bent and manipulated. So we took extra special care to not only set the minimum bar of the open meetings laws, but also add really needed protections and raise that bar so the people of Ohio have meaningful access and input and transparency during this process. One of the things I'm most proud of and most excited to say is that there are actually 3 required sets of public hearings at 3 different stages of the map drawing process. So I think one of the best things that happened in the previous redistricting cycle were the initial meetings when the commission actually went on the road and went to different regions of the state. You know, we packed those rooms, we made our voices heard, and we carried that over here. Before a map is even drafted or introduced, the commission is required to host a minimum number of meetings in each 5 regions of the state: Central, Northwest, Northeast, Southeast, and Southwest, and gathering public input and hearing from voters from all across the state. Once a map is drafted, there then needs to be a subsequent round of regional meetings. And I should also add that all of these meetings have a required public notice of 14 days, 2 weeks. The commission has to announce their intentions to meet. That way, you know, preparations can be made, schedules can be aligned in order for people to actually be able to attend and meaningfully participate. We saw it too often during the last cycle. Once we got deeper into the map drawing process, meetings were called literally at 24 hours on the dot. And it was just very difficult for people to change their schedules and make sure they were able to attend. Not in this proposal. 2 full weeks. 2 full weeks at both the outset and then after the introduction of a map, but prior to its adoption. And then following that second round of hearings, should the commission wish to alter the map again, based off of the public input of the second round of public comment, then there is another requirement to host public meetings. Now, this third round of meetings is not required to be all around the state, and there's a smaller time gap between announcing and hosting the meetings. It's 3 days at this section. But we still are very encouraged to have this third, required opportunity for Ohioans to attend meetings, ask questions, and have their voices heard. So really building in that kind of that requirement that the commission give enough time for people, go to them, not make them always come down to Columbus. We meet people where they are around the state. Very excited about that, and I think that's a big reason why this transparency piece is such a great asset to this proposal. However, I'm also very excited to say we have additional protections for transparency in there, and these really kind of safeguard the communications amongst the commission members and with commission members. Basically, it is forbidden for anybody to have meaningful conversations with commission members outside of public meetings. So that's no sending secret emails, secret texts, saying, hey, we should be looking at this in the map. No, all of the meaningful conversations, deliberations, debate on maps have to happen in public. And if it is found that that rule is violated, then there are accountability measures in place to make sure that, one, the public knows what was said in those private conversations, and also to potentially reprimand the commissioner who engaged in those conversations. So really, really taking seriously the public's right to know what is being said about in all stages of the map drawing process. And I also want to add one final thing before I lead into the next section is it is going to be so critical during these public meetings. We wanted to make it as robust as possible in order to give people of the state enough opportunities to come and have their voice heard, because the record that is developed during these commission meetings is, one, going to be the blueprint and really the historical record of what happened, what was said, who came and testified, what were they testifying about, how many people came and testified. But the record that's laid before the commission also plays a monumental role in any potential legal challenges to any map that the commission creates. And I'll get to that as we go to our next slide, please. So before we get to that, some basics on what happens if a map is challenged. Well, I say, first of all, we made sure that when this policy was crafted, any challenge to any map was set on a expedited review schedule. We did not want to make or provide an opportunity for delay and very long lasting litigation. This is going to be a very sharp, very quick process with, definitive timelines and strict requirements for meeting those timelines. Any registered Ohioan can petition the Ohio Supreme Court following the adoption of a map. Now, I will say that if more than one challenge or more than one petition were to come before the court, those would all be consolidated down into a single case. So we wouldn't have, multiple cases against one single map. It would all come down to one. The Ohio Supreme Court is charged with unanimously picking 2 special masters to help assess the maps. And special masters are, it's the redistricting term for professional map drawers. They know the software, they have the skills, they have the training. And the Supreme Court will pick this unanimously, but if they don't, if they can't come to an agreement, then it'll be a random draw of 2 special masters. And I should also add that these special masters will be pre-screened by the original screening committee that chose the commissioners as well. And the basis of any legal challenge to any map is limited to the proportional representational fairness aspects of the proposal. There was a lot of questions last go around about the procedural aspects, what the construction of the map, the actual lines, whether or not that allows you to challenge the fairness principles. We stripped it down and we made sure that the statewide proportionality, the fairness measures were the only things that can be litigated over. The commission has exclusive standing to defend the map. So again, we won't have the case where there were 4 or 5 different people, being represented in one single lawsuit. It's going to be just the sole commission. And then the record that is actually developed by the commission hearings will be the record that the court will evaluate when determining the constitutionality of the maps. That's why the transparency and the public hearing piece is so important, because that record, you going and testifying and sharing your story, giving your input on your community of interest, that is what will be used to evaluate the constitutionality of the maps. The Supreme Court will make a determination based on the record of the commission meetings and the testimony. They will determine whether or not the commission did abuse their discretion in drawing the maps, if they didn't abide by the fairness principles. And if they find that they did, they will direct the special masters to make the minimal adjustments necessary to meet that criteria. Again, the intent here is to highlight the fairness principles, keep it on a tight schedule, and to have finality. So it's not a perpetually ongoing process. And with that, I will close and pass it back to Mia.
Thank you so much. We have one more slide, and then we're going to answer some questions here. So a lot of questions have come up about timing, and I want to give you a little bit of information about where we are and where we're headed. And with the caveat that, of course, there's a lot of this that we don't know. So we know that the policy was finalized in August, and that we began by collecting our first 1,000 signatures for about the summary of the policy. And that first summary was rejected by the Attorney General in August, and then we collected a second round 1,000 signatures, and that has been submitted. It was submitted on September 5th to the Attorney General, and we will get an answer from him as to whether or not he certifies that summary language tomorrow. And maybe we'll have to collect another 1,000, and maybe we'll have to collect another 1,000 after that. But at a certain point, he will certify the summary language. So this is a series of hurdles that we're going to go through. So that will be the first hurdle that we will go through. Then we go on to the ballot board. Now, the ballot board has to determine if it's a single subject. You'll note that this policy that we're talking about is both for the redistricting process for congressional maps and for Ohio House and Senate maps, for legislative maps. So it puts them both together. But in the redistricting reform effort in 1981, the redistricting reform effort in 2005, the redistricting reform effort in 2012, all three of those put congressional and legislative redistricting together, and they were certified as a single subject by the ballot board. So the history is there that is a completely reasonable thing to do. It's the same process, and that's why we consider it a single subject. In any case, the ballot board will do what the ballot board does, and we will see how long that takes. There's no way of knowing exactly what will happen or how long that will take. But at a certain point, the ballot board will certify the petition, and we will begin signature collection. When will we begin? As soon as we possibly can. We don't know when that is, but it'll be as soon as we possibly can. When will we submit? Now, we're going to start collecting a minimum of 413,446 signatures. And they have to be from 44 counties. Obviously, we have those same requirements. And everybody here knows that we have to collect a lot more than that. Because not all of the signatures will be valid for a variety of reasons. Most of them are, the people have moved or they changed their name or whatever it is. So we have to collect a lot of signatures, and we'll do that starting as soon as we can until the very beginning of July, when we will turn those signatures in to the Secretary of State's office. The Secretary of State's office sends those out to the county Board of Elections, and they validate those signatures. And it takes them, they have about 3 weeks essentially to do that. And they check and make sure that we have the required number of signatures from the required number of counties. And then the Secretary of State certifies that we met those requirements, and we are certified for the ballot. Then we enter the phase where we have to convince everybody to actually vote for this measure, which is another hurdle. And then we go on to our election in November of 2024. Okay, great. That was the first part. Now the commission comes into play. So at the very beginning of 2025, the selection of the commission begins. We have that bipartisan panel of judges, of the review panel. They spread out the application, they get in applications, and that selection is complete by May 16th, 2025. And then the citizen that OCRC is the Ohio Citizens Redistricting Commission. That's what we're going to be talking about. The Ohio Citizens Redistricting Commission. They convene and they draw maps. They complete their maps by September 19th, 2025. And those maps are then used for the elections, congressional and legislative elections in November 2026, because the maps that we have now, they were not bipartisan maps. Only bipartisan maps under our current constitution last for 10 years. These ones were not, so they only last for 4 years. So, we all had a lot of frustration with our previous redistricting reform, but at the very least, you can say that it meant that we get better maps in, after 4 years, as opposed to in 10 years. So this is a lot of hurdles, but we can do it. We know we can do it. And we will keep you informed all along the way of where we are in the process and what is happening and how you figure in. Now we're going to take a little pause for questions. We still have more things to cover afterwards about how you fit into this and what our next trainings are, etc. But I want to give Catherine Terser, I'm going to put the spotlight back on her, and we'll give her a moment to answer some of your questions.
Well, and I would say no need to put a spotlight on me because I'm going to be asking you all some questions. So I'm going to start with Jen Miller. Jen, hello. So Jen is with the League of Women Voters. She's the executive director, and the question is pretty simple. How many times is normal to submit ballot language to the Attorney General? And so when we're talking about this, we're talking about the summary that ends up on the petition.
Yeah.
How many times is normal?
Well, we certainly can get knocked down several times. Note that we did have a slight change in the amendment language itself between number 1 and number 2. And so this next time we may change the summary a little bit, but we will not change the amendment. But I think we were expecting 3 times. But what I want everyone to be assured of, and I can't tell you all of our strategy, right? But we have contingency plans. We have a great set of lawyers. That's why we started so soon, so that when, if we had shenanigans by the ballot board, which is a little later, or we had shenanigans from the AG, that we could keep working and moving forward. So we will keep submitting these, and eventually, if need be, there could be some legal action, but I can't talk more about the strategy beyond that.
All right, so I'm going to throw this one to you, Trevor. This is Trevor from Common Cause, Ohio. Why can't we just use computers to draw the maps? And if we get this question, how do we push back on it?
Well, I think this process, this is supposed to, benefit and represent the people of Ohio. So I think the people of Ohio should have a part in the process. But I think the biggest is communities. A computer program cannot identify communities. It can't identify that cohesiveness, that connectedness that different areas have. Also, when you put when you ask a computer to draw these maps, they just doesn't spit out one map. They spit out like hundreds of different variations of things that they could do, and then it actually takes people to go through and even if you say like programmed all these different like splitting requirements and things in there, it's just not going to have the same kind of community cohesiveness as something that's going to be done by Ohio citizens who actually know their communities, who actually know their needs and their concerns and their issues. So I don't trust a computer program to do that. I think it's this is our process. I don't want to hand it over to a computer.
Yeah.
A short answer is that thing that I learned when I started working with computers: garbage in, garbage out.
Mhm.
So we want to make sure that we have good input and that our citizens are representing us. Okay, this is for Colin. There was a question about residency requirement. So the citizens that are on this commission, how long do they have to be a resident, and how did you kind of evaluate that and decide that?
Yeah, so when every single independent commission that we looked at when we were doing our research had some level of a residency requirement. You don't want, and this is where our brains are right now. After 3 years of doing this, you don't want somebody kind of like parachuting in 30 days before before commission members are, supposed to be selected. No, we want real, authentic Ohioans to be the ones on this commission drawing these districts. And we set the residency requirement at a very fair standard. I want to say, I don't have it in front of me, I want to say 6 years. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And 6 years is very reasonable. It really is a large tent, and it doesn't exclude folks for not living here long enough. It would allow young folks, young Ohioans to participate. And it also allows people who have moved into the state. But there needs to be a level of moving into Ohio, understanding the communities, getting acclimated to the state, our customs, our cultures. So a 6-year residency requirement is actually fairly middle of the pack when we're looking at other states' independent redistricting commission. So I think this proposal really kind of finds the sweet spot, and it is intended to make sure that we are warding ourselves against potentially people who are coming in with a ulterior motive, but also allowing authentic Ohioans who are engaged in the process to participate.
So Mia, I have a very simple question. This sounds like a lot of work for these commissioners. Are they paid, and do they get to have staff?
Yes, great question. They are paid. They get a stipend of $125 a day, which, some of us wanted it to be a little bit more, but we wanted it to be, I think it was equivalent to other similar kinds of daily compensation for similar kinds of tasks. But they do have staff. That is one of the first things that the commission does, is that they hire, administrative staff. They have all kinds of help in different ways. And so, that's really important that they not be, we want them to have skills, and we want them to have the right temperament, and we want them to have the right focus. And we also set up really, really good rules to make sure that one group or even two allied groups can't make all the decisions. They have to be decisions made together, but they're not expected to actually physically draw the maps and know all about mapping software and all of that. They will have help, and they will have compensation. Nevertheless, though, for those of you who did hear the interview that Catherine did with Anthony Eade from Michigan, this is, you're not going to do this and, go to medical school at the same time. No, this is going to take up a lot of your time and energy and focus, and it will change your life. Like, it will be an amazing experience for sure.
So I am sure that there are so many questions you all have, and we're not going to get to them today. We're getting close to 7 p.m. What I would say is, of course, we're going to keep having these regular huddles. We're going to keep having meetings. We're going to have trainings. And with that, I'm going to hand this off to Mia to kind of give you some more information.
Yep. Thank you so much, Catherine. And yes, we're kind of coming to the end here. So I know a lot of you are on here because you're here to say, what can I do? And I just want you to know that particularly after our victory in August, where they tried to take the right to bring issues to the ballot away from us, away from citizens, citizens are the center of this redistricting reform effort. You guys are the heart of this. We literally would not even be trying to do this if we didn't know that we had an incredibly passionate, educated, engaged set of active volunteers who have put already sweat equity into this, and who care about redistricting reform, and who are ready to embark on the work. So you guys are going to be central to this. We need a petition circulation army, like, for sure. We absolutely need that. And so we're going to be building that system up over the next, couple of months, so we can, hit the ground running when it comes to circulating petitions. We will need volunteers to be doing education and spreading the word, speakers bureau, letters to the editors, social media campaigns, all of those things we will need you for. We half of this campaign is going to be after we get on the ballot. You know, in 2015 and 2018, those were legislative compromises where voting yes on that redistricting reform was a yes on the Republican slate card, and it was a yes on the Democratic slate card, and nobody spent any money trying to convince people to vote no. We are going to have so much money being spent against this because we know this threatens the folks that want to keep power and don't really care about democracy and representing Ohioans. So that is going to be a big struggle and a big part of the effort, and we're going to need you there. So what are the next steps specifically? Of course, tomorrow we'll find out what the AG says. We may be collecting another 1,000 signatures. I would just say, stay connected, stay in touch with Fair Districts, read our emails when they come out. We're going to be telling you when and where you can sign petitions, when you can get training, all of those things. Kind of stay in touch. And with our partner organizations that make up Fair Districts, with League, with Common Cause, with ACLU, with all of the different organizations, we're going to be talking about all of these things. Council of Churches, etc. The first webinar coming up is on September 28th. It's a noon webinar, and the former Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor will be on to talk about citizens, not politicians, and to go in a little bit deeper about the policy. And we have a registration link that we'll share with you. And we also are beginning some petition circulation trainings on the 17th at 6 and on the 26th of October at noon. So those are our two opportunities to learn about circulating petitions. It's easy, it's fun, it's wonderful. You want to recruit all your friends to do it. It'll change your life. So that's it really for us here. We have this wonderful picture of the folks who came out today and some of the citizen maps that we were suggesting that the commission look at. Unfortunately, they didn't quite get around to that. They didn't even get around to discussing anything. And we have some links to share with you, some media about what's going on with redistricting in Ohio, etc. And we're going to share all of this with you tomorrow. So we really appreciate—
One real quick question, Mia,
Yes.
that I think you would love to have answered for everyone.
Yes.
If you have signed the first 1,000,
Yes.
you can
Yes.
sign
The
again.
answer is yes. The answer is yes. Keep signing, people. You can sign any of the first 1,000s. If it's the first go round, the second go round, the third go round, you can sign those every single time. And you can sign the real petition when it comes out. And so, you know, get ready to sign, people. Get your pens ready. And, you know, get ready, get your petition, your clipboards ready, because I know some of you were asking us in years ago, when can I take out my clipboard? I want to go and collect signatures. Well, this is it, folks. This is when you're going to take out your clipboards and start collecting those signatures. So stay tuned, and we will be sending up a follow-up tomorrow. So thank you guys so much. It is 7 on the dot. And we appreciate you so much. And we will see you again soon.
And don't worry, we'll send you that link with the photos. If it didn't work for you, we'll make sure that it's an open link. And a big thank you to everybody for joining us. I know this went lickety split, and there were things that you might have wanted to do a much deeper dive in, and we will continue to do this. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for joining us. Have a really good evening. We very much appreciate your coming today. Bye, everybody.